The streets of Los Angeles buzzed with life as the evening lights flickered against the city skyline. Among the neon glow and bustling traffic, a lone figure sat on the pavement, his fingers gently strumming a battered guitar. His name was Ethan Carter, a musician whose dreams had been buried under the weight of unpaid bills and countless rejections. Ethan's days were spent performing on street corners, pouring his heart into melodies that often went unnoticed by the hurried passers-by. Tonight was no different. He played, hoping someone, anyone, would hear the emotions woven into his music. But as people walked by, dropping the occasional coin or nodding in fleeting appreciation, the ache in his heart deepened. Then something unexpected happened. A shadow lingered in the crowd, watching intently. Ethan barely noticed at first, too lost in the rhythm of his song. But when he glanced up, his breath hitched. Johnny Depp stood there, dressed in his signature bohemian style, his hat slightly tilted, and his sharp eyes fixated on Ethan. The recognition sent a shiver through the young musician's spine. He blinked, unsure if he was hallucinating from exhaustion. Johnny stepped forward, crouching slightly as Ethan's song reached its crescendo. When Ethan played the final chord, silence settled between them before Johnny spoke. "That was beautiful," Johnny said, his voice calm yet filled with emotion. "What's your name?" Ethan hesitated before answering. "Ethan Carter." Johnny nodded, looking at the worn-out guitar. "You've got talent, Ethan. Why are you playing on the streets?" A bitter chuckle escaped Ethan. "Because no one will listen anywhere else." Johnny studied him for a moment, then did something that shocked Ethan and everyone around them. He sat down beside him. "Mind if I play?" Johnny asked. Ethan, still trying to process what was happening, handed over his guitar. The legendary actor and musician adjusted the strap, plucked a few notes, and then began to play. A familiar tune filled the air, and within minutes a crowd started to gather. The sight of Johnny Depp casually performing on a street corner was too surreal to ignore. Ethan watched in amazement. Johnny played with a natural ease, his fingers dancing over the strings. Then he looked at Ethan and motioned for him to join in. Heart pounding, Ethan followed his lead. Their music blended seamlessly, a spontaneous duet that held the crowd spellbound. When the final note rang out, applause erupted, cheers filling the street. Johnny handed the guitar back to Ethan, a knowing smile playing on his lips. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a card. "Meet me at this address tomorrow," he said. "I know someone who needs to hear you." Ethan stared at the card, his fingers trembling. The address belonged to a well-known recording studio in Hollywood. Johnny patted his shoulder. "You've got something special, Ethan. Don't waste it." With that, Johnny Depp stood, tipped his hat, and disappeared into the night, leaving Ethan holding not just a card, but a second chance at the dream he had almost given up on. That night, Ethan barely slept. The thought of meeting a producer the next day sent his mind racing with possibilities. He sat in his tiny, rundown apartment, his fingers running over the worn frets of his guitar. Could this really be happening? Was it all just a dream? Morning came, and Ethan found himself standing in front of the address Johnny had given him. The towering building was imposing, a stark contrast to the street corners where he usually played. Taking a deep breath, he stepped inside. A receptionist greeted him, already expecting his arrival. "Mr. Carter?" "Right this way," she said, leading him down a hallway lined with gold records and framed photographs of legendary artists. His heart pounded as they reached a glass-walled studio where Johnny Depp was casually chatting with a producer. Johnny looked up and grinned. "Ethan, right on time. Come in." The next few hours passed in a blur. The producer, a seasoned music executive named David Lawson, listened intently as Ethan played a few of his original songs. With each note, Ethan felt his nerves dissipate, replaced by a growing confidence he hadn't felt in years. When he finished, David leaned back in his chair, nodding in approval. "You've got something special, kid. Let's make an album." Ethan nearly dropped his guitar. "Are you serious?" Johnny chuckled. "Very serious, but only if you're ready for it." Tears welled in Ethan's eyes. He had spent years chasing this moment, enduring heartbreak after heartbreak, and now, because of one chance encounter, his life was about to change forever. As Ethan signed his first contract, he looked over at Johnny, who simply gave him a knowing nod. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one where dreams weren't just imagined, but lived.